Hey guys, welcome back to DCS World. I'm Spud as always. And today we're going to take a quick look at Jester's new ability to use the Lantern pod in the DCS F-14A and B Tomcat. Now this new ability for Jester really breathes new life into this module, because ever since the release of the F-14, single-player Tomcat pilots have been locked out of the precision strike capabilities, forward air controller airborne, and close air support capabilities of the F-14 Tomcat, and this will also allow more F-14s to take on that precision strike role in multiplayer, because now you do not need a human pilot and a human Rio to access the Lantern pod in the DCS F-14. This is really going to be a breath of fresh air for this module, and I am excited for all of the new possibilities, including air-to-ground focused campaigns for the F-14, which I think is definitely sorely needed. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Of course, we've got a beautiful VF-31 Tomcatter skin on our F-14 today. This is my second favorite livery after the VF-111 Sundowners. And attached to our F-14, we've got a very prototypical Operation Enduring Freedom / Operation Iraqi Freedom loadout for our F-14, with 2 GBU-10s on the front Phoenix pallets and 2 GBU-12s on the rear pallets. Please keep in mind that as you build loadouts for your F-14 in the mission editor, always have the heavier bombs up front and the lighter bombs in the back of the tunnel for weight and balance and stability purposes. And if you can, try to drop the heavier bombs first and the lighter bombs second. If it's unable to do that, it's okay, but you will have a little bit less stability as you're flying the jet around. Of course, we also have the Lantern pod on the right-hand glove station, and we'll go ahead and head into the cockpit to take a look at the other additions to our F-14B. So here in the cockpit, right off the bat, you'll notice that your aircrew, your pilot and your Rio, are now using MBU-15 oxygen masks instead of the much older MBU-5P oxygen masks that have been in the F-14 since its release. It's a very cool addition that really makes you feel like you're flying a very late model F-14 over the skies of Afghanistan or Iraq. We also have new digital engine interfaces down here to the left of the TID, which is very, very cool to see, with little digital screens with actual digital tapes instead of physical tapes like you see in the F-14A Tomcat. But without further ado, let's go ahead and hop in and get started with actually using the new Jester ability to use the Lantern pod. This is an awesome new capability for the F-14, and I am super excited about it. So we'll turn our gun rate to high, because I like to use high gun rate even for strafing ground targets. Get as many bullets as possible on that target in the shortest amount of time. And then you'll see when we go to the air-to-ground mode of the HUD, Jester will automatically switch our TCS view over to the Lantern pod. And there it is, and it'll tell us our laser is armed. Perfect. So let's go ahead and have him queue up our waypoint 1, which will be our IP point. And we can see that point is in the forests of Lebanon as we cruise out to hit Hama Air Base here on the Syria map. So as we are rapidly approaching this waypoint, we'll go ahead and have him queue up our navigation to our target point and have him slew our pod over to our target point at Hama Air Base. So we'll just go over to set queue mode, waypoint 2, and we can see that our target airbase over here is rapidly about to be masked by what looks like maybe part of a GBU-10 on our wing pallets. This is because of the fact, of course, that the Lantern pod is mounted way off the center line on our right glove station, with our target being off to our left here. So we'll go ahead and have Jester queue up our navigation to our target point through the original navigation menus. And of course, when you first bring up the Jester menu in the air-to-ground HUD mode with a Lantern pod mounted, the Lantern interface is the first thing that pops up. If you then need to get to, say, your old air-to-ground weapons menu, you simply go up to the top left, click the menu button, select ordnance, and we'll select our GBU-10. If you need to get back to the main menu, just open up the Jester menu, click the menu button once again while looking forward, and now you can navigate through all of the menus that usually appear when you open up the Jester menu beforehand. So we'll go ahead and click off our autopilot, and we will make more of a left turn than we need to get towards our target area here, so that way we can look for targets without having to worry about masking our pod. Now, one of the things that I really like about heatblur's implementation of this new ability for Jester is all of the controls that you see to actually interface with the pod through Jester are all things that you could do with, say, a human Rio in your backseat, or with a real pilot with a real Rio in a real F-14. For instance, let's go ahead and do one of those situations before we actually start to attack targets. So we'll get our autopilot back on, and we'll pull back on the throttle a little bit, so that way we can give ourselves a little extra time here. So let's say you're tasked with being a forward air controller airborne in your F-14 over the skies of, say, I don't know, to crit. Come on, autopilot. And you're looking through your binoculars one day, and you see a little town down there that you think maybe has a target of opportunity or has some kind of a threat that you're worried about for any convoys or any friendly soldiers that you're protecting down below you.
Okay, area track selected.
So we could say, hey, Jester, why don't you go ahead and slew the pod over that city over there, and let's take a look and see if there's anything funky going on down there. And then as you get that city up on your lantern feed, you could say, okay, Jester, can you go ahead and move the pod a little bit down? Yeah, that looks looking good, Keep moving it down, keep moving it down. See that tree line? Yeah, move it to that tree line. There we go. There we go. And right there. Does that look like a guy with, say, a man pad on his shoulder? Or just, this is all for example, for instance. Then we could say, okay, Jester, go ahead and designate that point.
Range is valid. Right, 40 degrees.
And then we can go ahead and come back in and actually attack that point with a laser-guided bomb, or come in for a strafing run on that tree line, or whatever the case may be. So that is something that is incredibly useful, and it's a very realistic way of, say, interacting with the pod through Jester. And as you guys could hear, I was kind of giving a bit of an example of how I would be interacting with the Rio to get the pod onto that point. But anyway, let's go ahead and head back to actually attacking Hama Air Base with a couple of laser-guided bombs.
Okay, we gotta come right here.
And of course, Jester, because we've designated that point, he's trying to walk us onto that target for a weapons release, which I guess can get a little bit annoying if you have no intention of actually attacking that target. So let's go ahead and set Q mode, waypoint, waypoint 2 to get it back to Hama Air Base. Perfect. And one thing that I wish that the controls for the Jester and Lantern system were able to do was able to set a manual zoom, to have Jester zoom in and out the pod. Maybe I just haven't found it yet, and so if anyone knows that if that's a capability, please let me know in the comments down below. One thing that I will say is Jester does not look for targets by himself very well. Sometimes he does it really well and can latch onto a target pretty quickly, and other times it can be very frustrating to try and walk him onto a target point. He usually tends to do better with larger targets such as ships or larger aircraft such as transports, but I guess that makes sense with the lower resolution of the Lantern targeting pod. So we'll kind of keep doing a bit of a lazy orbit around Hama Air Base as we actually search for targets. So I think the mode that I'm going to be using most in the F-14 is going to be that head mode, where I actually manually direct Jester around our target area. And looks like maybe we've got some targets over here on this ramp area. Move it just a little bit more right there. And we'll have him...
Laser range valid. Right 55 degrees.
Alright. Right, 55 degrees. We got a range of about 12 nautical miles. I think we can do that. So we'll go ahead and come around here. At Hama Air Base, it is not easy to see out here. It's always funny how difficult it is to actually find airports visually sometimes. You would think they'd be the easiest things in the world to find.
Come right, 3 degrees.
Right, 3 degrees, roger that. Cool, and it looks like we got our Lantern pod right on top of a couple MiGs down there.
Looking good, we're on.
And with a GPU-10 on those MiGs, we're going to take out all of them right in a row. We'll get the wings into bomb mode.
Now. 10 seconds.
And Jester, of course, gives us a nice countdown, which is fantastic.
5 seconds. Okay, let's pickle that sucker.
All right, here we go, Jester. And we'll just clean up the target point right there. And we'll get it right on top of that MiG.
Lasers on.
Nice, here we go.
Good impact.
Boom. Nice shot, right on top of that MiG. Alright, so we'll go ahead and extend out here a little bit, and we'll come around for a reattack. But for you guys, this is the end of the road for the video. It is a absolutely fantastic new addition to DCS World, having Jester be able to control the Lantern pod and not needing a human Rio in the backseat for those precision strike as well as close air support and forward air controller airborne capabilities of your F-14. It truly is transformative for this module. Like I said, I hope that one day we'll get some air-to-ground focused F-14 Tomcat campaigns, and this really unlocks what the F-14 Tomcat's bread and butter was in actual combat scenarios during the twilight of its career with the US Navy was, which is, of course, dropping bombs, and being better at doing that than the F-15E Strike Eagle during the early 2000s. In fact, F-14A Tomcats from VF-154 actually flew sorties as the lead aircraft for F-15E Strike Eagles performing close air support over Iraq. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I really hope you enjoy this new addition to DCS World. So enjoy this beautiful game, and have an awesome day, guys. We'll see you in the next one.